Hi, my name is Isaac, and my close friend is an alcoholic and drug addict. My friendship before my friend started abusing drugs and alcohol, we were pretty close. I considered him the closest thing to a brother that I've ever had. When I first met him in another city, it was, he was young, he was in college, and it seemed normal, and he'd get wasted to the point of blackouts and running into walls and things like that. So I always thought maybe, there was something more to it, but it was always just easy to say, he's young, he's having fun. There was a moment, though, when it started to just seem more obvious that there was a problem. There was a specific incident where we all went to Taco Bell, and he was just wasted beyond oblivion, and just threw a just enormous temper tantrum, which had been happening a lot up to that point, but this one was a lot bigger than usual, and threw all the garbage all over people's cars and refused to get back in the car, and so we had to leave him on Hollywood Boulevard alone. As the drug and alcohol use progressed in my friend, I knew it was time to distance myself because it started affecting me, and I knew that I had to walk away or I might go down the same road with him. There was that, and also I knew I was enabling him, and I was enabling his behavior, and I started to feel responsible, and I wanted him. I thought that maybe distancing myself would make him realize, you're losing your best friend. Specifically, I saw him after a few months at his birthday party. I wanted to show up, and I actually wanted to approach him about his problem at his birthday party, because I thought that might be, number one, I was ready, and I thought that maybe it would help him, understand the severity of the situation. And when I saw him, I just broke down crying immediately because he looked so bad. And I just remember he was completely disconnected and didn't care. I mean, it was like talking to a new person. I didn't recognize him looks-wise. I didn't recognize him emotionally, mentally, or anything. It was completely new person and completely oblivious, and my words just fell on deaf ears completely. Shortly after that, actually, my friend's mother contacted me, and actually, I think it was his mother and father, on a conference call of sorts. And I, at that point, but prior to that, was lying to them because they had contacted me before, and I felt like I was betraying my friend by telling them specifics of what was going on. But at that point, I told them everything, and I told them about his drug use and the people he was hanging out with and all of that stuff. And their first response was not intervention. I think it was to bring him back home because they wanted to basically baby him, and they thought that would work. And I think they may have. And after that didn't work, we kept in contact and everything, and then they approached me about an intervention. The intervention process came together rather quickly, if I recall. We were told, what to expect, and we were told the success rate, and, we were kind of told not to expect necessarily the best outcome the first time. And we were also told to, if I recall, write him a letter of sorts, like how our friendship has changed and how if he doesn't seek help, the friendship will change in the future. And it was all organized, and a date was set for his parents to fly to Los Angeles. At first, the intervention didn't work. He actually ended up, I think he came high, either that or he had recently I think, taken crystal meth. And so he walked in, and immediately he tried to run, and he did run. And all the rules were broken of how we were supposed to handle it if he did run. Eventually he ended up coming back and listening to us and listening to what we had planned and written out one-on-one on his terms, not on the interventionist terms. It was on his terms, and so we went along with it and we talked to him one-on-one. And it was heart-wrenching, but at the same time, it's like the last thing we could possibly do. It was the last straw, otherwise who knows what would happen. And he eventually, a couple of weeks later, did end up going to treatment. When my friend left treatment, he did end up relapsing, and I think during that time that he was in treatment, I didn't allow myself to get close to him. So I kind of didn't feel anything. I shut off that side of emotion, and number one, I wasn't surprised, and number two, I can't necessarily say I was upset because I didn't believe that the first time around would work anyway. After his relapse, I don't remember the time frame, but he did end up going to rehab again, and this time it was outside of Los Angeles. So I was a little more hopeful, being that it was outside of Los Angeles, and also he was separated from his boyfriend at the time, who I thought was a huge factor in his drug and alcohol use. So I was more excited. Once again, I was nervous and apprehensive and didn't know if I trusted it, but this time I thought he seemed different about it, and he would call me from rehab, and he was like, it was like talking to my old friend again, the person that I knew before everything, and listening to him talk, it was a lot different than before. And the first time he was cocky, and it just seemed like a manipulation of everybody. This time I knew that he was in it for himself, and I was hopeful. I was very, very hopeful and apprehensive and nervous. When my friend came back to LA, he went immediately into a sober living, and which I thought was awesome. I thought it was a huge step not to return back to the world and try to deal with it. And he went into sober living, and he, as far as I knew, wasn't talking to a lot of most of, if any, of the old people in his life, just the people that I think through getting sober, he realized really cared about him. And I was apprehensive about rebuilding the friendship. I didn't know if I wanted to, because so much time had passed, and I still harbored so much anger and hurt toward the situation that I still was disconnected emotionally, in a sense. But I visited him at sober living, and it was just like no time had passed. It was like our friendship prior to when it all went downhill. And it was fun. We played games, and he was very serious about staying sober. And I knew this time I could sense something, and I could sense that it was real. If someone has a friend who is suffering from a drug or alcohol problem, I would say hang in there, and look up the definition of enabling and make sure you're not doing it, because that just allows a lot of guilt to enter you, and say it's not your fault, and also say, they're so far in denial, it's really easy as a friend to be in denial along with them, and it will be the hardest thing that you go through, but don't be scared to walk away and let them hit rock bottom, even though it is the most difficult thing you will ever go through. You need to see your friend do this on their own and hit rock bottom and make those realizations on their own, and just stick with other friends and stick with their family if you can, and try to support each other through the process.